Hey, ladies and gents, welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. As always, I'm joined by Dom.
Praise the sun.
No Jordan this week, so we're not going to get his introduction of me, sadly. Episode 120. In terms of what we've been playing, man, I have been going deep into Red Dead Redemption 2, Dom. I've probably put in, I would say on average, this isn't every day, but if I'm averaging it out over the past week, probably 5 to 6 hours a day on Red Dead. Ooh. Obviously, the weekend kind of bumped those numbers. But yeah, I've been playing quite a bit of it, and I'm not done with it yet. So I'm not 100%ing it in the terms of hunting all of the animals, because there's trophy animals, special animals you can hunt. I'm not doing all of that or all the fish or any of those things. I'm just making sure to play all of the side missions and main missions. And I'm in chapter 6. So in Red Dead 2, there's 6 chapters and 2 epilogues. And apparently the epilogues are really long. Not super long, but long for an epilogue, right? So basically what my plan is I looked up whenever I play an open world game, I always do this. I always look up what's the last mission where I should have an extra save, right? Because spoilers.
Yeah, of course.
Spoilers, if you remember Red Dead Redemption 1, it's an 8-year-old game. Don't get mad at spoilers. At the end of the game, John Marston dies and you play as his son. And so obviously there's a point in that game where you can no longer adventure the open world because the main character's dead. In this game, there is a point of no return in terms of, not that after you beat the game you can still explore the open world and do all this stuff I'm kind of avoiding right now, but a lot of the stranger missions are no longer available after that mission. And I haven't gotten to that mission yet in Chapter 6. And so what happens is you get to that mission in Chapter 6. I'm assuming it's the last mission in Chapter 6. And then you do the 2 epilogues, right? That are apparently really long. So my plan is just to create a second save file and then go back to it when I'm done with the game. But it's great. Like I said, I'm still avoiding story beats and stuff because I don't want to spoil it for you. But it's really good. Still having some issues with the horses, and what I will say about this game, and obviously I know you and Jordan are waiting for me to play God of War. I still haven't gotten around to it yet. I'm waiting for, hopefully there's a good deal for Black Friday.
Oh yeah, either $20 I think at a few stores.
I'm hoping for it digitally. I don't like buying physical games.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it'll be on PSN too, pretty cheap.
Hopefully. Anyways, so I'm looking to play that, but with Red Dead, it's definitely the thing where this is a great game. It's obviously no less than a 9. I'm not going to argue that by any means. And I actually really enjoy the game. I'm not going to go on a hot take city right now. But what I will say is it's the type of game that's trying so many innovative things that obviously not all of them are going to be perfect. You know what I mean? When you reach that far forward, you're going to have things that don't necessarily click or don't feel right just because they're new technology and it hasn't been perfected yet, right? But that's not to say that them trying it and accomplishing it in some form isn't also great. So that's kind of the weird spot I'm sitting in, is that there's so much great about this game, but some of the stuff that's great, there are issues with it. You know what I mean? Whereas with Spider-Man, that game is, obviously people can have nitpicks about the narrative or whatever, but for me that game ran fluidly. There wasn't any part of the game that was a mechanic or something that was didn't run right or was weird. It was just a very solid game. But then the argument with that is well, did they innovate anywhere? And that's the tough argument, is well, no, but everything was, in my opinion, almost flawless. But then with Red Dead, it's well, yeah, they innovated on a bunch of things, but not all of those things work. So I'm talking about when we talk about game of the year or our favorite game of the year, that's the tough thing I'm sitting at, is they're different. And though Red Dead has more problems to me, quote unquote, than Spider-Man, I don't know if they necessarily knock it down a whole lot because it is innovating so much. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. It's kind of confusing.
Yeah, I think that's probably a popular take of Red Dead is maybe the much more technically impressive game.
Yeah.
But Spider-Man was more fun, so to speak. I mean, that was a really simplified maybe version of what you're trying to say. But same kind of thing where Spider-Man didn't do anything necessarily crazy and new, or you might argue the web swinging in and of itself was maybe not an innovation, but a really greatly fine-tuned way to traverse that probably haven't seen before. But otherwise it's pretty combat is overall kind of like what you'd expected. It's really good, really polished and stuff, and like the story is really good. But yeah, whereas, and it's not speaking from experience, whereas Red Dead seems like it's, yeah, like you said, doing a lot of new kind of crazy, technically impressive sort of stuff in comparison. But I think that'll probably be a common take we're going to start hearing come GOTY time.
Well, and the funny thing is, I think, though I haven't played it yet, obviously hearing yours and Jordan's impressions, I think God of War somewhere falls in between, where like the axe mechanic...
I was going to say that next.
Yeah, the axe mechanic is obviously very innovative, but there's a lot of things about God of War that aren't necessarily, pushing boundaries. Like, it's not a true open world. It hits a lot of things that have just been perfected over this generation of video games. So, though it has some innovation, it's not like to the extent of Red Dead. So it kind of falls in that middle ground. So maybe then that's a good sweet spot for God of War. You know what I mean? Because there isn't the argument that it did so much innovation that some of that stuff didn't hit necessarily. And it's not Spider-Man, where though Spider-Man was a fantastic game, you can make the argument of like, well, yeah, but what did it push forward? And like you said, you can make the argument for web swinging. I think it's all three of those games present something different to the table. For me, I kind of feel bad with Red Dead because as innovative as it is, it's weird not saying, oh, that's the best game I've played all year. But innovation doesn't always necessarily mean like the best experience you had. So it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, all those Game of the Year conversations that people like to argue about can you can always come to an objective truth, and the way you do that is by being extremely clear on your definitions of Game of the Year, right?
Yeah.
Because most impressive technical Game of the Year, well, maybe that's Red Dead, but then like the most fun you had in a game in a year, well, that might be this, or like whatever, you know what I mean? When you leave it as ambiguous as like just best Game of the Year, like best or most fun, or that can mean a lot of things, and people are going to take that different ways. So that's my critique of the gaming community today.
And I think with the way we do it is we do it very baseline, very rudimentary, and it's just because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but it is cool to see out of us three which one rated the highest. And obviously the way we do it is we all make our own personal top 10 list for the games we played of the year, and then it's just a numerical addition system, and it's nothing drastic or crazy, but it is an easy way to come up with an answer based on all of our own opinions without us like... I just think it's very simple and fun.
Gotta have guidelines.
Yeah, exactly. If I remember correctly, Dark Souls 3 was our Game of the Year 2016. Last year was Odyssey, I think. I think it was Odyssey. So I'm interested to see what it is this year. Are you going to play Red Dead?
The other problem... yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. That's the other problem, especially for like Game Awards. I mean, people are voting on that, and like, I mean, I know I'm going to vote, but I'm not going to get around to Red Dead this year, most likely. Certainly not beating it, to full completion or whatever. And so like, that's just simply a flaw in the way that award is going to be given out, and that's kind of unavoidable. Okay, never mind. Because the Game Awards, they give it out. They must give out two, right? Like a People's Choice one, and then kind of the gaming sites critique one or whatever.
No, so the way
different outlets.
I don't have the exact numbers on this, so my numbers aren't specific. But the way it works is a heavy majority is the Game Awards judges, and then the rest of the percentage is user votes.
Oh, okay.
So it's like 80-20. Okay. It's like 70-30, 80-20. It's something like that. It's very heavily weighted.
That's fascinating.
Judges. Yeah. So
because that's kind of the one thing. That's the one thing you always wonder. Where like, you hear about at IGN they're debating on Game of the Year, and it's like, well, is everyone that's included in that debate, have they played every single game that came out that year or whatever?
Yeah.
That's kind of the flaw of the whole thing. It's an imperfect thing, but we do the best we can.
Exactly. But the thing is that us three, as small as our thing is, we lean into that fact because our lists are based on the things we play. So if all three of us play a game and love it, then it's gonna have more points because all three of us played it. So it's kind of like, you know what I mean? And it's our controlled interest Game of the Year. It's not like the official Game of the Year. Like that, Game Awards has a lot more burden on that. Exactly. Yeah. That being said, like I said, I'm having a blast with Red Dead. Magic the Gathering Arena, its recent update came out the day we're recording, and that adds private matches and stuff, so that's really good. The community was asking for those. And I know people are like, oh, that's weird, why isn't it in the game automatically? I think people have to remember that, the people who make Magic the Gathering Arena now aren't Blizzard. Like when Blizzard made Hearthstone, like Blizzard is known for making high-quality games and having things that fans want. Obviously, they don't always hit the mark on that, but Blizzard has a reputation. Honestly, I can't even name the developer of MTG Arena that's also made the past Magic the Gathering digital versions. It's not Wizards of the Coast. They sign it off to somebody else to do it. But I knew that these kind of like weird, quality of life additions to the game weren't going to be there at launch. But I'm glad that they heard people being like, "Why can't I just play my friend on this game? It's dumb." And like, that's our first priority, and they did it. There's actually a bit of controversy because they prioritized getting the ability to play games with friends in the game above bringing MTG Arena to Apple platforms, to iOS and what the hell's the
Android?
No. iOS and it's already on it's going to be on Android. Mac. There you go. The platform. Yeah, they prioritize that over that. You're right. It's Mac. It's iOS and Mac. And basically, what they said is the statement changed from coming eventually to basically let us know if you really want it. And that's the whole tough thing too with Mac and iOS is a majority of people don't play video games on that platform. People do play games in there, but there's a reason you see indie titles or games that don't really have all the resources move over and put their games on those platforms because they just don't have the money or there's no point to. They don't see the ROI on it. So, yeah, people are kind of mad about that, but I think private matches for Windows is more important than putting it on Mac because I think they've done the research and there's not a whole lot of Mac users that are looking to play games through Steam or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base on that, but
iPad though. I could see iOS being pretty big. I'm with you on Mac. That's not really a high demand market for any games really.
Yeah, actually, I think it was that it's not coming to Mac or Linux, not iOS or Mac. If that makes sense. I think I misspoke. Yeah.
I might have misheard too.
Yeah, who knows? They didn't say iOS though, like iPad and iPhone and Android and stuff like that. They didn't say that it wouldn't be coming there. It was just Mac and I think Linux. Yeah, it's pretty much it for me. I didn't play anything else. I've been grinding hard on Red Dead 2. That's pretty much it for me. What about you?
I finished Hyper Light Drifter. I mean,
oh wow,
over like a 2-day span. I beat. You get through like the first area and you beat that first boss, and then it was just like I expected. It's just like a Dark Souls or Bloodborne, where like you get over that first hump, and then at that point you're extremely confident and comfortable with the mechanics and how the game is playing, and then you just get sucked in, and then you're just like deep, and you're like, oh, this is good, and you're just dashing around. And certainly by the time maybe about halfway through it, I was completely over my critique from last week, like the controls not feeling like quite right and not quite calibrated. I had definitely gotten over that, and I felt like I was pretty damn comfortable, bopping around and dashing and shooting and slashing and all those things you do in that game. It's a fantastic game. I have no idea what the hell went on in it, what the story was about, really. You pick up like bits and pieces of like, oh, okay, the frog people came and destroyed this village.
Like in a Dark Souls way, or in like a worse way than that?
It's that, but multiplied by 10.
Okay, gotcha.
So, we talked. Me and Jordan mentioned this a little bit last week, but the way the narrative is given to you is there's no dialogue, not verbal or written at all. And there's very few NPCs, and you go to talk to them, and they basically show you like 3 pictures of scenes of things that happen, and that's it. And that's how the story is told. And at the very end, some things happen after you beat the boss, and it's like I don't really know what that was. So I guess that's a weakness of the game. I guess I didn't mind that, but it was super super fun, and the music and the art direction was absolutely phenomenal. So I had a ton of fun with that game. And I once I got into it, I just burned through it in like 2 days. I was just like must have played 6 hours between 2 days and just got it done because I was really feeling it, and because it's on Switch, so it's super accessible
and convenient.
And convenient, yeah. So I definitely I recommend that to like anybody. Actually, no, I don't, because it's a little difficult.
Yeah.
And because of what I said about the story, if that's going to turn you off, then like you're not going to like that. but the gameplay is so good, and I don't know. It's a great game. So I had fun with it. Hyper Light Drifter, ladies and gentlemen.
It's so funny because it plays to my sensibilities a lot. It's just hearing the narrative stuff kind of bums me out, but that doesn't mean I'm any less likely to buy it personally. It's just like man, I wish, but it's fine still because it's a gameplay driven game. Excellent music.
And you know what? It's like there probably is maybe there is an excellent story that they're telling.
Yeah.
But I just don't know about it.
Yeah.
So you just don't know, I guess. I tried to pay a little bit of attention as I was going through and tried to like puzzle, put some pieces together, but I was just kind of like, I got parts of it, but the overall story, I don't really know. I don't understand. So, yeah, that's that. It's like, you played Hollow Knight. It's almost kind of like that, but without the dialogue at all. The dialogue in that game is pretty abstract.
Yeah.
From a lot of the NPCs, but this is obviously even more abstract, being only pictures. I don't know. It's an interesting. I'll give it to them. Like they tried something new. I'll give them that. Credit for that at least. So
yeah. And the interesting thing there too is like Hyper Light Drifter. Most of the environments I've seen, obviously I haven't played the game. Most of the environments I've seen rely more on stylization as opposed to like detail. Whereas like with Hollow Knight, things have a very specific aesthetic and they're detailed. It's a very simple aesthetic and it's very detailed through that. Whereas Hyper Light Drifter goes more for style period.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
And then the difference between like that and Hollow Knight and Dark Souls is like, I think through Dark Souls through like a 3D scope, you can piece together a lot of that like fuzzy narrative a lot easier. I think. I don't know. For me personally, it's easier to grasp. But like I said, you saying that about Hyper Light Drifter doesn't like turn me away from the game. It's just like I mean, it sucks, but whatever. It doesn't, it's still a great game. Is that everything you played? Did you get? Oh, you finished God of War 3. I forgot about that. I was going to ask you about that, but I remember you finished that a couple weeks ago.
Yep, had already finished that. I got Fallout 76 last night, but I still haven't had a chance to actually jump in. So more to come next week on Fallout 76.
The best thing I read, the best Dom review I read for Fallout 76 was that there was a couple of people actually that said if it doesn't feel like a true Fallout game. That's not the part that's very Dom, but it feels like a single player game where you sometimes run into other people, which I think is good for you because I know you're not super into multiplayer and you're worried about that, whether or not it'd feel like a true single player experience. And the people who are playing it alone say it's fine, it's great. It's not like a traditional Fallout experience, but they're having a blast playing by themselves. So I'm like, oh, dope. Yeah. That's good for Dom.
I mean, everything that like I've read about it that is at least did some kind of critical analysis and not just. Well, Jank Thesda put out another pile of shit, or everything I've read that is actually critiquing it is kind of in line with what you said. The first statement, less so that more like it's a Fallout game, but without as compelling as a narrative as a result of no NPCs, so the quests feel not quite as interesting a lot of the time.
Yeah,
but everything else about Fallout is still there. And also, there's some people you run into once in a while. I don't know.
Your opinion,
it's a weird thing, I guess.
Your opinion to me actually matters more, not just because we do a podcast together, but me and you share similar views on Bethesda in general, and we enjoy the games, and we understand things are broken. We've had the whole discussion about, like, there's a difference between, like, broken and just because a game, launches with problems doesn't mean it's not innovative. Me and you feel the same on a lot of that stuff, so I'm interested to see how you feel about the game specifically. One of the worst criticisms I've heard, one of the worst, and that's not even a hot take, it's just a dumb statement, is people are like, oh, I can't believe they're not getting multiplayer super correct in 2018. It's like, well, it's kind of a dumb statement because Bethesda has been a single-player developer for a very long time, and this is their first, Bethesda Game Studios anyways, because Elder Scrolls Online isn't made specifically by Bethesda Game Studios. It's their first foray into like true multiplayer like this. And people are like, well, it's 2018. Why can't you just get it right? It's like, well, you wouldn't go to like a sushi chef and be mad when he can't cook you proper fried chicken. Like, you know what I mean? He'd have to learn how to do that first. So when you have a company you hire for a specific purpose and then you'll learn other things. So it's just weird to me that people are like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and you could even argue the opposite, to me, honestly. I mean, you could find some pretty big examples of, what was it? Was it Battlefield 4 or Hardline? That when they came out, like the multiplayer was unusable or whatever. There's lots of examples like that of studios that are normally do giant multiplayer stuff and it at least at launch for a few days or whatever, it was all fucked up, you know. So if the game works, to be honest, I'm already a little bit impressed, or they've already like met my expectation, which that sounds like, well, I'm not putting a high enough expectation on them, but I expected this to be kind of fucked up at launch because of what you said. Like, they don't do this sort of thing, and that thing is really hard, even for the folks that are extremely experienced at doing it, right? So, yeah, I'm excited to get started on it. But yeah, we'll have more to talk about it on that. Oh, last thing I wanted to mention is, if you didn't read it yet, Jason Schreier put out a really interesting little article, because a lot of the critiques about
the engine,
Bethesda and other studios, the engine, where like he basically he's not defending the game, but he basically is kind of saying like, well, the definition of an engine is a little more, you know, abstract and not necessarily important. Yeah, there's a lot more nuance to it. Like, not necessarily saying that like, well, your game's just not good. Maybe look at it that way instead of, it's weird that we pick out specific excuses for the developers when that might not really be the problem, whether it is or not.
He does a really good job of explaining.
Engine is
he does a really good job of explaining like what an engine is and how though two games can use the same engine, they can be drastically different. And I fully agree with them. I'm like, yeah, it's those hot terms that people like to just throw around to the internet because they're angry.
Exactly.
And it's
just an easy thing to say, like, oh, the engine's fucked. Like,
and it's so weird.
New engine.
It's so weird to me because the two video game companies that take the most heat are EA and Bethesda, and I think EA is deservedly so. They've done a lot of things that are like, I'm most often an EA apologist on this podcast, it seems like, but they have done stuff that like I understand why people feel a certain way. With Bethesda, it's like, yeah, their games launch in not a great state, but there's still a reason they sell as well as they do, and they continue. Like, I don't know. It just like, I think Bethesda gets the shit end of the stick a lot of the time for, I don't know why. They're an easy, I don't know, victim. I don't know. It bothers me sometimes. I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah, I'm with you. Sometimes some of the critiques are like, okay, but now you're just saying that like to fit in kind of thing almost. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just
not that they're beyond critique, but
exactly. Like, I'm not saying that you can't critique Bethesda. Just like the amount of vitriol they get and hate, and I'm like, Jesus. We were talking about before we started recording. Before Fallout 76 launched, its user score on Metacritic was 3.2. You know what I mean? Insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
Before it launched.
Exactly. I don't know. Yeah. I forgot about that article. It's a really good point. It was a great read. If you get a chance, go over and Google it. Jason Schreier, Game Engine, Bethesda. Really great read. He actually has a comment about a story we're going to be talking about later. Jason Schreier, all those hot takes. Not hot takes, but
hot scoops.
Hot scoops. The first bit of news is just congratulations, PlayStation. The day of recording this, November 15th, is the 5-year anniversary. It came out in 2013 on this date. PlayStation made this cool infographic. The PS4, yeah. Did I just say PlayStation? Sorry. They made a really cool infographic about all of the different statistics for the PlayStation 4 over its lifetime. It sold over 86 million units as of September, which is really good. It's about where we expected it to be. Very well. Very, very good numbers. Its software sales are over 777.9 million units. Just round it up to 778. Just do it. Makes things a lot easier. That was of June 2018, so that's not counting Spider-Man and all these other big fall games. So that number's going to skyrocket as well. They mentioned like major updates for the PlayStation, which is kind of a weird thing. It's like 11 major updates from 1.01 to 6.0. It's just a very funny thing to have in an infographic, in my opinion. The top 5 best.
I see what they're trying to say. Support. It doesn't translate well to that graphic, but basically, we support it, and I would be curious to be like, oh, like, what did the UI look like, you know, on my day one PS4 versus what it looks like now? It's all this cool new features, and it all works better. But that doesn't, in the graphic, it's kind of a weird thing.
The one for the 360 is crazy, because if you remember the old Xbox slides to what it was at the end of its life cycle, that was insane.
Yep.
So they have the top five best-selling games on PS4, all third-party, which is not surprising, obviously. It's Black Ops 3, Call of Duty World War II, FIFA 17, FIFA 18, and Grand Theft Auto 5. The interesting thing here is 4 of those 5 games are about 2 years old or less. GTA 5 is obviously 5 years old. So it's people were trying to make a hot take about like, well, this is why, exclusives don't really matter. It's like, well, I mean, third-party games are just going to sell really well because they're meant to appeal to the widest demographic. You know what I mean? And also, soccer is like the most popular sport in the world, and Call of Duty sells like hotcakes, so it's not surprising. If there was like an Assassin's Creed in that list, or something that's third party that is huge but not like drastically huge, then I'd be a little surprised. But the fact that it's 2 FIFA games, Grand Theft Auto, and 2 Call of Duty games, it's like, well, duh. You know what I mean? Duh.
That's the shit that like the attach rate is like, extremely high. Anyone who buys it from any kind of demographic, like you have a PS4 Xbox, then like you do like 80% chance you own one of those games or whatever, right? So
exactly, yeah, that's not surprising to me. Some people are trying to hot take, and I'm like, it's fine, it makes sense. I'm pretty sure Xboxes wouldn't be much different than that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the top 5 DualShock 4 colors. This one's interesting. Number 1 is black, which is a weird thing to put on the list because it's the default controller that comes with every console. So it's like, of course, it's going to be one.
Yeah. I thought it was like that gray one they made. I didn't look close enough at the graphic then.
So it looks like I'm not familiar with PlayStation. It looks like a black controller. It could be the gray one. I could be wrong.
I mean, I gave them the benefit. I gave them the benefit of the doubt that they wouldn't put the black one on there because of what you just said. But maybe they. I don't know. That would be silly if that's what it was.
2 is the blue one, the darkish blue one. 3 is the red one, the bright red one. 4 is the white one, and 5 is the camo one. Which I've always thought camo looks ugly on controllers and stuff and consoles.
Horrible.
Yeah, I've never been a fan, but the most popular titles. So this is, I'm assuming, it's based on number of players. I would assume, right? Because then the next one's most downloaded. So most popular is the most players. Number 1 is like a host of Call of Duty games. Then it's FIFA 17, FIFA 18. You seeing a trend? Grand Theft Auto 5 and Fortnite. None of those are surprising.
Naturally.
Once again, probably the same on Xbox. Most downloaded games. So obviously this isn't purchases necessarily. It's just the games that were downloaded the most. Call of Duty Black Ops 3, Destiny 2, Dead by Daylight, which is very surprising and really cool to see. Just Cause 3 and Mafia 3. Those last 3, were they on PS Plus?
That the entire list that was all on PS Plus, so that's why.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. So they're the most. So all of them are on PlayStation Plus, but they were the ones that were downloaded the most out of all of the ones that were on it.
So, wait, what is the category called again, or how did
most
they title
downloaded it? And it has the. Now that I'm reading it twice, it does have the PlayStation Plus logo. So that's what it is.
Okay.
It's like out of all the games that were available on PlayStation Plus over the course of the PS4's lifetime, these were the ones that were downloaded the most.
So I hate to deflate your excitement over Dead by Daylight, or was that what you said that you were like, that's interesting? Yeah. It's really not that interesting anymore when you know that.
Well, I mean, but do you think it's the 5th best game that's been on PlayStation Plus? So it being in the top 5 downloaded is impressive, though, right?
It still is a little impressive. Okay, there's still something there. I won't completely deflate you. Yeah. Because like Bloodborne and Ratchet & Clank were on PS Plus, and God of War 3 Remastered. But you're right. There were some other good PS Plus titles that I would personally say should be higher than that.
Then there's the counter argument to that of like a lot of those games maybe got purchased and didn't have as many downloads because they had been purchased by the time they got on PlayStation Plus. Whereas maybe not a lot of people bought Dead by Daylight. Valid point, yeah.
Unless they were counting like total downloads of Black Ops 3 and not just PS Plus ones. Maybe that's a cheat. Though.
I don't know.
That sounds like a cheat.
Yeah. Like I was
interesting list to see though.
I'm like, oh cool, and then you're like, no, and then I was like, well, and you're like, oh yeah, that's really funny. And this is the weirdest one on the infographic. The rarest PS4 model, which is obviously the 500 million limited edition navy blue one. It's just a very weird thing to have on it. It's like the rarest one. It's funny.
I would challenge. I mean, they obviously know better than I do. But I would challenge that because exactly that had to be rarer. It's way more expensive and harder to find, I would think. But I mean, they know how many they made, so I guess it's not just marketing for it. I don't know.
Yeah, And this one specifically, and you can, maybe I'm dumb on this. This one specifically is the one with the PlayStation Eye. Did all of those come with the PlayStation Eye? That PlayStation 4 Pro limited edition, the navy blue, did all of them come with the PlayStation
so.
Eye? Okay.
I think so, because it was like $500, but then they're like, oh, but it comes with the Eye.
Gotcha.
Like, good. Yeah. Cool. I couldn't wait to get that bundle. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just a weird thing. Anyways,
yeah.
Congratulations, PS4. You've been around for 5 years. Possibly only going to be around for 7. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting thing. It's cool to celebrate. They took this generation by storm because Xbox is like, oh, you messed up on PS3, hold my beer. And then PlayStation 4 is like, we're going to run away with it. And they've done a really good job. The first couple of years, they didn't really have a whole lot of exclusives. But then, obviously, they didn't matter because after that point, probably last, 4 or 5 years, we've had a steady stream of really great PlayStation exclusives on the PS4. So, yeah, good console, great console. I finally have one. I'll end up having to trade it in soon for the PS5, but we'll see. The next bit of news, we mentioned Destiny 2 is actually one of the most downloaded games for PlayStation Plus. Colin Stevens over on IGN wrote about how during an investors' earnings conference call, Activision revealed that despite its perceived NPD success in September, Destiny 2 has underperformed. They stated it did not meet their commercial expectations and that there is still a lot of work to do in order to re-engage the core Destiny fan base fully. The COO of Activision, Cody Johnson, went on to say, "We have not yet seen the full core re-engage in Destiny, which has led to the underperformance against our expectations to date. Some players we think are still in wait-and-see mode. When you're in, you're deeply engaged, and if you're not, we're hoping now's the time. We're working to bring players back in and win them back." I think this has a lot to do with what happened with Destiny 1 and how it kind of repeated itself literally in Destiny 2. I think what they're also not taking into account is the fact that though Forsaken is seen as a big win for Destiny 2, in order to get into Forsaken, you have to buy the previous 2 DLCs that were critically panned and not very good. So basically Activision and Destiny were telling you, in order to get the good DLC, you have to buy these 2 bad ones that no one wanted. And if I'm somebody who fell out of love with Destiny 2, why would I spend money on things I don't want? That's pushing me away. As good as I hear Forsaken being, I'm not going to want to spend money on things I don't want. So it's like, why would I spend $60 for a piece of DLC and 2 others I don't want when I can spend that money on one of the big fall titles coming out like Red Dead, right? Or Spider-Man or something else. What do you think about this whole situation? Is it surprising that it's underperforming? What does this mean for Destiny 3? Like, what do you think?
I mean, surprising. Not so much, because they probably had like sky high expectations that they wanted it to meet, right?
Yeah.
I would bet, from like a purely, budget point of view, like development budget, it obviously like made that back probably and then some. But it, even if it made a bunch of money, they probably wanted to make, a bunch more. So it's not necessarily surprising. It's surprising that we hear about it like that, I guess, a little bit. That's not good for their case. To be honest. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Their early strategy for that DLC of like, oh, you got to buy the previous ones to get Forsaken. That to me is like, that's a hard fuck no. Frankly, that's like no, absolutely not. That's horrible, like kind of design and plan. Whereas on the other side, as of late, I mean, like we mentioned, that game was free on PS Plus, and it's been, I want to say it was free on like PC on like Battle.net or whatever it's called recently also, and then it's like constantly on sale for like $5. They did a lot of free weekends, so that like the base game is essentially free for all intents and purposes. Obviously that's like, well, let's give it to people and then they'll buy that DLC. So that I thought was a really good strategy as of late, but I don't know. I mean, as far as what that means for them going forward, I don't know, man. I never got too far into that game. Or Destiny 2, I didn't really play at all, actually. But 1, I was kind of like, beat the campaign and was hard out. I don't know. So it never really totally clicked with me, the whole appeal of it. But I don't know. It's Destiny, and it's going to continue to exist for 10 years, right? That's the plan?
Well, the third one is going to be the last one in the 10-year plan. And apparently, this isn't in the story by Colin Stevens, but this was like conjecture elsewhere. Apparently, the relationship between Bungie and Activision has been frayed since the first game. Because if you remember, the first game, got scrapped I think it was 15 months before it was supposed to come out, and they had to start again from scratch. And there was a big old thing that happened because Activision didn't believe in it. Yeah, the game the original vision got scrapped. I doubt all assets were scrapped, obviously. But yeah, they had to turn it around really quickly. And apparently their relationship has been frayed for a long time. So after this deal is done with Destiny, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Bungie. Personally, I would love to them to go back and do another partnership with Microsoft because I really like Bungie. I love the first 3 Halo games. I mean, I like 4. I haven't played 5. But it's weird. In terms of Destiny 3, I think it'll sell well. I just think this is partially a reality check for Activision. And Destiny 1 released in a different environment with games. I mean, right now, Dom, Forsaken came out in September. We have Anthem coming out in February of next year and Division 2 coming out. You know what I mean? On top of Red Dead Redemption 2 with its online mode, on top of Call of Duty Black Ops 4 having its own Battle Royale, I just think that people are
Fallout 76,
Fallout 76, exactly. I mean, doesn't matter how well or bad that game reviews, Fallout games sell well. They just do. Look at the numbers.
We'll see for this one.
I don't think it'll be top 10 MPD at the end of the year. Easy.
Top 10. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. Not top 5. Not a chance. But I think it'll be top 10.
No.
Just marketing money alone. What was I saying? Oh, with gamers, I think it's a thing of why would I pay $60 on something that's turned the game around? And I agree with you. Them making it cheap or at least free for a long time now. I think you can get it until November 30th on Blizzard.net. It just, I don't think fans want to pay money for things they don't want to get something they do want. And this is twice that Destiny's burned people. Destiny 1 came out, didn't have enough content for people. A couple of DLCs were bad. Third one turned the game around, made it a fantastic game. Coming into Destiny 2, people are like, well, Destiny 1 ended on a high note. They're going to have all that great stuff we love and then just add on top of that. And then Destiny 2 was a stripped-down game. It was actually a Destiny 1 clone. Not clone in the sense of the same game, but a lot of the same issues, right? First 2 DLCs came out, didn't fix anything. Third DLC came out. It's a brand new game. It's meeting all of these expectations. It's fantastic. If you're a gamer, why would you live through that twice? You know what I mean? It's difficult, and it's frustrating. It's like, why would I burn myself twice when I can go play all of these other games? So,
yeah, I mean, just go play Fallout 76.
And like you said, Activision doesn't publish games to make a small profit.
Yeah, exactly.
They publish games to make large profits. Right. So I do think this game made its money back, and it's been profitable, but they weren't aiming for, 10, 20%. They're aiming for tripling their profits, doubling their profits. And we have seen as much stuff as EA gets. Activision has had some stuff happen over the last couple of years with microtransactions and stuff that, especially with Destiny 2 as well, where you can tell that they're trying to squeeze this orange of all of its juice. And I would say, giving all of these reports, I think after Destiny 3, I don't think there will be another Bungie-Activision partnership. I just don't. If anything, I think Bungie's going to be like, let's do our own thing, because it doesn't seem like it's worked out well for them.
If what you said about their relationship kind of becoming frayed, even a little bit, or rather, I don't know where you heard that, but if the extent of that is to what God damn, I can't talk. It makes sense that that's been going on, and if that continues, and if this game was considered as underperforming, that's not going to help, especially that message becoming public. That's not going to help that relationship. I would make the same bet as you just did, where after Destiny 3, maybe we see Bungie go do their own thing, or who knows what. Or, I mean, you got to prepare the unfortunate possibility that they just close, I guess, is possible. I don't really see that happening, but
I don't think Bungie is in a financial spot where they need to close. I think they partner with Activision for marketing purposes. I think Bungie could have probably made their own games. Maybe not Destiny, because I think it takes a huge budget. But I think they'll be fine afterwards. It just depends on what they want to do. I could easily see them getting acquired by Microsoft as well, given their previous relationship. The Halo partnership didn't end because of...
why did that end?
It didn't end on a poor note. Bungie just wanted to do their own thing. They enjoyed doing Halo, but they kind of wanted to do their own thing. And basically what Microsoft said is hey, we partner with you for Halo. If we were to have you do something other than Halo, we don't think it'd be a smart partnership. So then Bungie's like, well, we kind of want to do our own thing. And they're like, well, our deal's done after this. Let's just go our separate ways. From what I've read, it didn't end on bad blood. Who's to say if they ever want to go back to Microsoft? I'm not saying it's all chipper, but it's not like bad. In terms of their relationship being frayed, Bungie and Activision, it was journalists talking about anonymous developers from both Activision and Bungie. It was like an anonymous person at Bungie has told me their relationship has been frayed since Destiny 1. Sure. Citing that their vision for the game was different from what Activision wanted. A lot of the stuff that Activision implemented was because they didn't feel it appealed to enough of a general audience. Those kind of things that you hear from big publishers.
Well, that's the kind of stuff, though, and we're dragging on about this, but that's the kind of stuff where, like, you could get one account from, like, you know, the best business partnerships in the world that were extremely successful. Like, yeah, every so often, I'm sure there were some people in boardrooms dropping F-bombs and cussing each other out.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, it could still be a good relationship. So, like, maybe you had even multiple accounts, you know, of reports, like, of this, there's bad things going on, they're not agreeing. That doesn't necessarily, you know, tell the whole story, I guess. You never really know.
Yeah. We actually have two big stories to get to. One of them I think will flow through pretty nicely. There's a lot of news to get through, but I don't think there's a lot of stuff we need to say about it. And the last one is a bombshell that we'll get to. XO18 news. So XO18 happened. Obviously, I think expectations were weird on this because Xbox didn't set the expectations to be super high. They did say there will be some announcements. Yeah, and I was fine going into it. I was like, there's going to be some studio announcements, maybe one big announcement, and that's completely it, right?
Yeah.
Some people hyped it up and thought it was going to be PSX of old, not PSX of new, and all of this different stuff. I was fine with it. I thought it was a good show. It was exactly what I expected. Some people were disappointed, but honestly, I think that's more on them. I'm not trying to be pro Xbox or anything, but I don't think they necessarily overhyped the event at all. That being said, I want to get into some of the announcements. Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer. We got our first look at Winnie the Pooh and 100 Acre Woods in Kingdom Hearts 3. That's cool because Winnie the Pooh's been in all three mainline games. Well, you know, the first two. So this is really cool for people to see. 100 Acre Woods, one of the biggest complaints for that level, that world, is that there's never really much to do in it. And in Kingdom Hearts 3, it looks like there's going to be a bunch of mini games and some cool stuff that they added in. They showed off, I just wrote down mobile fluffy guy. I was hoping Jordan would be on this week. But one of the fluffy characters from one of the mobile Kingdom Hearts games is in this game. You see Sora go down and like talk to him. So people were kind of excited because that means that mobile game's technically canon, which people were worried. I guess it wasn't. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you played the game with that little mobile fluffy guy in it, Dom.
No.
Yeah,
I did not.
Definitely a Jordan question. So he was in it. Crackdown 3. It showed cloud-based multiplayer, this new game mode called Wrecking Zone. It's completely destructible environments from top to bottom. It actually moved its release date up. People were fearing it was going to get delayed and yada, yada, yada. It actually went from the 22nd to the 15th, which is good for it. I was hoping it wouldn't get delayed. I didn't think it was going to get delayed. February is a bad month to release. But I do think Phil Spencer at this point is like, we just need to get this game out. I honestly don't even think they expect it to review critically well. I think it'll probably be like a 7. I hope it's higher, don't get me wrong, but I just think Phil Spencer and the team over there is at the point where we've done as much as we can. We just need to get this game out and move on past it. I do think it'll be a fun game. One of the things they did announce that's really cool is that you can get Crackdown for free up until November 30th via backwards compatibility, and it has Xbox One X enhancements, which is really cool. They kind of strayed away from mentioning Crackdown 2, which is the worst of the two games out of Crackdown and Crackdown 2. They showed multiplayer. They didn't really show single player. They had a really cool Terry Crews commercial. I'm not probably... Well, oh yeah, I just forgot. The cool thing, it's coming out on Game Pass. I don't even have to worry about buying it, so I can play it.
You can try it for free, so to speak, but yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Did you watch XO18 at all, Dom?
I did not. I read a few summaries or whatever, but I didn't actually see the trailer for this. But I mean, from what you just described, especially like the multiplayer trailer, I don't know. That sounds pretty cool. I have nothing going for this game. I don't care about it in the slightest. And then obviously a lot of, like, in general, has been doubted. Just of everything it could possibly do has been doubted. But that sounded pretty cool, how you did like a multiplayer kind of, everything's fully destructible. Finally got that cloud engine, whatever the hell, seems like that's going as a part of this. It sounds like it could be fun. like a solid game. I mean, it can't be anything less than that because like they could have put it out probably a year or two ago to 5s and 6s, but I can't imagine like that would still happen. It seems like they took the time to make this at least solid and good.
Yeah. And so the multiplayer mode, it's really cool because it's like a bunch of skyscrapers and literally everything in the map is destructible, and they show it, and it's really awesome. The shooting mechanics of it aren't great. Crackdown's never been known for being a top tier shooter. But I do think with it being on Game Pass, I think it's one of those games that it'd be cool to download just to check out that stuff. That's one of the things going to the Red Dead argument. The Red Dead is obviously a very good game. Crackdown that's innovation, like a completely cloud-based multiplayer map. Yeah. It may not be a 10, but the innovation is still interesting. Mm-hmm. And that innovation could lead to a 10 down the road, maybe not a Crackdown game, but something else using that cloud-based technology. So who knows?
Well, and frankly, this is another great game that like Game Pass could propel it into something it wouldn't have done otherwise. I mean, look at Fortnite or whatever, like that. I mean, I would never have guessed that would be as popular as it is. Like, it sounds dumb. Exactly. And Crackdown seems like a little bit of the opposite. Instead of building, you're destroying structures, I guess, is one take. But I could just see Crackdown becoming like and obviously it's a bit limited because it's only on Xbox and PC in this sense, but I could see this being like a bunch of people try it and like it could blow up a little bit. Like people just going in there and screwing around and tearing down buildings and whatever. I could see that this having like that kind of appeal of a kind of a community type of game that, I don't know, yeah, it could get big. I could see it.
Well, and the thing is that Phil Spencer during XO18, which I won't mention in our listing of announcements, he said that games are actually selling better when they're on Game Pass. Like Sea of Thieves, State of Decay, Forza, we heard the news, remember the sales numbers for Forza Horizon 4. Their games are selling better even though they're on Game Pass because it's word-of-mouth marketing. Crackdown 3, I think, will financially do well because it's on Game Pass, which means that if we're seeing the trends, it'll sell better than what they expect. Or previous entries anyways. And having Terry Crews in your commercials, I think, is a pretty good get. Like, people see a video game with Terry Crews in it, they're like, I want to check that out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it'll either lead to more Game Pass subscriptions or people purchasing Crackdown 3 or both, which is huge. Mm-hmm. So
Game Pass is exactly what this game needed. I mean, if this got put out at $60 and that's it, I would be like, that's going to be tough for it to find some success at that, I would bet. But Game Pass, like, I don't know. I could see it. I could see it happening for it.
Well, and the crazy thing is, I think Days Gone will be a better game than Crackdown 3. But Days Gone, if it was an Xbox exclusive as opposed to a PlayStation exclusive, I think that's a perfect Game Pass game too, because it's a game that's been, I wouldn't say mocked, but like people have been worried about that game. There have been questions about that game, and I think that's a game that you put on an online service and people can play it, and it astounds people, right?
There's some similarities there. I see that.
Yeah, I think Days Gone will be a better game, hopefully anyways, than Crackdown 3, but who knows? We'll see. They announced 16 Game Pass announcements for games coming out by the end of the year. They included Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I didn't list all of the games because a lot of them were just like, oh, those are cool indie games, kind of just building out the roster for Game Pass. But it was cool that they had that many announcements. I'm trying to think off the top of my head if there was a couple of games that are actually going to launch on Game Pass, indie games, which is huge. Going to that point, I didn't even put this on the listing, but they announced Winter of Arcade, which is their promotion, Summer of Arcade coming back, but in winter form. They didn't announce any of the games. They said watch the Game Awards, which we'll probably see the announcement there. If I was a betting man and you told me what games are going to be on Winter of Arcade, I really think it's going to be Below, which we've been waiting for forever from Cappy Games. I think it's going to be Ashen, if you remember, that's like the weird artistic Dark Souls game. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be Ooblets, which is the really cute Pokemon kind of vegetable game. And I think it's going to be Tunic, which is that really stylized isometric Fox game, Fox Zelda. I would say those are the 4 games that are going to make it in. If you're not familiar with Summer of Arcade, it was a promotion for indie games. Limbo launched on that. And the way it worked, Castle Crashers as well, is for every indie game you purchased, you would get discounts or rewards for the next purchase. So it incentivized you to buy multiple games in the promotion, which is really smart. It led to more sales of those indie games. It led to a bigger bulk of people purchasing them because they're like, well, if I buy one, then I get this one like 50% off. It's a really good promotion. I'm glad to see it return. It gets me excited because that means that they're willing to go back and reach in and get some of these old promotions they've done and bring them to the light. So we'll see what happens. I just think it was a cool announcement.
Yeah, definitely.
They announced the arena for Sea of Thieves, which is a separate fast-paced game mode for treasure hunting. Cool. Keep adding stuff to Sea of Thieves. They announced the Zed Hunter DLC for State of Decay 2, which adds a crossbow and a bunch of gear and other cool announcements, including that there's going to be some kind of update where you get to return to the map of the first State of Decay, which State of Decay 2 fans are really excited about because people love that game. It was a cult classic. And the big news at the end of the day, 2 big acquisitions. The thing that sucks, and I think this lends itself to the hype thing we were talking about earlier, is we knew about the Obsidian acquisition about 2 weeks ago thanks to Jason Schreier, and it kind of took the wind out of the sails in terms of it being exciting. I think if that didn't happen, it would have had a lot larger of a pop, and people would be like, oh, that's a crazy announcement. But because we knew about that, people took that as if it was Microsoft's fault, and they owed us more announcements because of that. It's not Microsoft's fault that leaked. Well, I mean, you know what I mean by that. It might have been a Microsoft employee, but you know what I mean. But they did announce the acquisition of inXile Entertainment, who does Wasteland and Bard's Tale, and they purchased Obsidian Entertainment, who's known for South Park Stick of Truth, arguably the best Fallout game, Fallout New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2. It is
the best Fallout game. Just you can take out the arguably.
So Obsidian is I would say Obsidian's the better of the two. Nothing against inXile, but obviously Obsidian has a really good track record. I think they're probably going to be handling something more high budget. I think Microsoft's feeding them a little bit more money. Whereas inXile, I think, is going to be handling the mid-tier, more Game Passy games. And I'm not saying that as a slight. You know what I mean by that. A quicker turnaround, not huge-scale games, but quality-style games. Most people kind of scoffed at the inXile purchase, but I wanted to bring up that Wasteland 2, which was their last release, had an 81 on Metacritic. So though many people might not have ever heard of Wasteland 2, it did review pretty well. 81's pretty solid for a mid-sized studio. And Bard's Tale reviewed decently well as well. So they average between 80 and 85 for a studio. So not top tier industry leading, but very solid games. And they already have Wasteland 3 scheduled for release in 2019. This was before the Microsoft acquisition. So it's a purchase that will see immediate return because Wasteland 3, Microsoft's not going to cut off development on a game that's supposed to be releasing next year. So that'll probably be the earliest return, right, on investment, is we're going to get Wasteland 3 first from all of these studios that they purchased. So maybe
you wonder.
Maybe we have a few DLC. Maybe. I don't know. Sorry.
You assume then Wasteland 3 is what consoles is that coming out on? Just PC?
No, right Wasteland 2 came out on consoles as well. At least came out on Xbox.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I think it's everywhere now. It's even on Switch. But I wasn't sure if the Wasteland 3 was that announced for just PC, and then or was it announced for everything? Or I wasn't sure. Basically, it would just be interesting if we get another Minecraft of another game that Xbox is publishing that is on PlayStation or whatever.
So according to its Wikipedia page, which is 100% accurate, its listed platforms are PS4, Xbox One, Windows, Linux, and Mac.
Okay. So they did announce it for close to everything. Even
though I shit on Mac earlier, it's still coming
right
out too.
There you go. Well, Wasteland is a very PC game, so it makes more sense, I guess, in that one than something else. No.
And the crazy thing, it's definitely one of those games that I personally probably wouldn't purchase based on budget, but it's coming to Game Pass, which means I'll be able to play it.
Yeah. I think the one thing I'd point out on this one is Wasteland 2. Well, for one, actually, I'll start by saying, we talked about this before with Obsidian when it was just a rumor, but that's a studio that, what's its next game? Is it going to have budget and backing to make it? I don't know. It's kind of iffy. They make great games, but, you know what I mean? They're not necessarily to a fault, in the quality of their games, but they're a studio that's kind of I don't know, are they going to be able to get something out with enough budget, right?
Yeah.
And then inXile, if I'm pretty darn confident that Wasteland 2 was Kickstarter funded or something like that. Yeah. Okay, I thought so. So that's a similar kind of boat. It seemed like they made enough money that they went ahead and started with Wasteland 3 anyway. But that's that same kind of similar boat where they might not be able to exist for decades. It sounds crazy thinking that long, but they might not be able to exist and make game after game without without something like this happening and Microsoft buying them. So I think in this case, it's hard for me to ever, I think it would be hard for someone to find a negative about Microsoft acquiring these studios, because it's you're getting something out. You're going to get more games from them that there's a good chance you might not have gotten a lot of games from them otherwise, basically.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
A purchase that I would love for them, because often we talk about these bigger companies, and it seems like Microsoft is getting some of those bigger companies, but they also want to get these like mid-tier guys that maybe are struggling to survive or just want more financial backing and security. That was the whole thing with what's the Hellblade developers, Ninja Theory. They talked about like we're a bad project away from not existing. That's terrifying for as talented as a studio is. One studio that I'm interested to see what happens with them, and maybe they might fall into Microsoft's lap, is Stoic Studio. The guys behind Banner Saga. All 3 of their games are crowdfunded. Banner Saga 1, 2, 3 all got tremendous reviews. I definitely need to get back to Banner Saga 1. Have you ever played Banner Saga?
No.
Man, that would be a great Game Pass game for you specifically, because I don't want to go out of my way and say, they review very well, obviously, but I don't want to go out of my way and say you need to buy it or whatever. But they are a very beautiful game. They're very, like, if you're into like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, it definitely hits all of those notes. The gameplay solid, like the strategic role playing. They'd be a studio that I wonder if they ever do see some tough times, if they might get picked up, because they're talented as hell. Like, their art design is very good. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the Xbox news. Like I said, there wasn't any major announcements, but those studio acquisitions are pretty important, especially with Game Pass, and obviously the future of Xbox as we lead into the next generation. Speaking of, the ESA accidentally, or maybe on purpose, revealed that Sony is skipping E3 2019. So this comes by way of Kotaku.com by Jason Schreier, of course. So a press release was given out today by the ESA, which is the Entertainment Software Association, regarding E3 2019 and what people can expect for the trade show next year. And Sony wasn't listed. So obviously people started asking the ESA, well, is PlayStation not going to be at E3 2019? And they're like, yeah, they pulled out of the show. And obviously a bunch of headlines went up. Sony's not going to be at E3. Sony's not going to be at E3. And Sony's sitting back like, we didn't know this was supposed to be announced yet. So they came out with a statement, and I'll read this to you now. As the industry evolves, Sony Interactive Entertainment continues to look for inventive opportunities to engage the community. This is by, just Sony's, their statement that they gave to Polygon. PlayStation fans mean the world to us, and we always want to innovate, think different, and experiment with new ways to delight gamers. As a result, we have decided not to participate in E3 in 2019. We are exploring new and familiar ways to engage our community in 2019 and can't wait to share our plans with you. Now, this came out, it was Hot Take City, it was Interpretation City. You have people thinking that this means PS5 is going to happen at PSX 2019. You have people saying that Sony's done with E3, they're never coming back. You have people saying, oh, Sony doesn't have the number of games, exclusive games or new announcements to show at E3, so they're just going to take the L on it. A bunch of different opinions. Obviously, we can talk for hours and hours about those. What I want to do is give our baseline feelings, my baseline feelings, Dom's baseline feelings, and then talk about what we think the repercussions will be for this. So, my feelings are, I feel that it's a mix of them not having the portfolio that they feel, because Sony is a very proud company, and I think that they personally feel that they don't have the portfolio of new announcements to have an E3 that would excite people, on top of the fact, in addition to, they're ramping up for PlayStation 5, and I think that they feel that instead of spreading too light on events, that they kind of want to hold the cards close to their chest and come out swinging in 2020. I am also of the belief that I don't necessarily think that this guarantees that PSX 2019 is going to A, happen, or B, revolve around PS5. If I were to give you my prediction and my belief, it's that they're missing out on E3 2019. They're not going to do PSX 2019. Spring of 2020, they're going to have the PS5 reveal event. They're going to showcase Last of Us and Death Stranding and Ghost of Tsushima. I think Ghost of Tsushima might be a PS5 game, but I think the other two are guaranteed to be cross-platform, cross-gen. I think they're going to show them running on the new stuff, because who doesn't want to see Last of Us running on PS5? Like Jesus. And then
Jesus does want to see that.
Yes. I do think they will be at E3 2020, and then I do think they'll release the PS5 in 2020 in the fall, and I do think there will be a PSX 2020. That's how I see everything. What about you, Dom?
Yikes! I mean, unfortunately, I don't have like a crazy. I'm not super convicted of anything here.
Yeah,
because it could be a lot of. There's a lot of different ways you could, die on a hill and say like this is probably it, and that's the only reason. Or you could say it's a mix of things. There's just a lot.
Let's start at one point.
A lot going on.
We can start at, since you don't have a definitive thing. I'll ask you some questions. You just tell me not where you think it is, but where you feel most likely.
I need the structure. Thank you.
Okay. 1, do you feel this is PlayStation saying, hey, we're not ever going back to E3? Or do you think this is we're just skipping E3 this year? No matter the purpose or the point, do you think it's them skipping E3 this year, or do you think it's them saying bye-bye to E3 forever?
Well, I'm a shitty like hot take person because like it's neither. Because to me, like maybe they're considering saying bye bye forever, and maybe that's the plan now. They're never going to say that, right? But they might be considering that. But right now they could be just playing it like, okay, we're just going to stop this for now, see how that goes, maybe, and then make a new decision on next year. Maybe it ends up being they never go back. But I doubt they're never going to definitively say like we're not doing this anymore. It's going to be a year-to-year thing where they make decisions, right?
Yeah, my one thing I will say is that people are comparing this to possibly what Nintendo does. The thing is Nintendo holds directs throughout the year, but they still make sure to show up at E3 nowadays. Like, they still make a point to be at E3. And so, though Sony has sold the most consoles this generation, I don't think that... I think it's a very hyperbolic statement to believe that Sony's like, we're above all of this. We could just... you know what I mean?
That's a little much too, yeah.
Yeah, they're a very business-oriented company, and if Nintendo is seeing the value in being at E3, and Microsoft is seeing the value in being at E3, I do think there is value at being at E3. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll give you... Okay, I think you probably got more questions, but I'll give you some of the points I think you're going to eventually get to anyway. Okay. One, first and foremost, like, they're not... So, say the budget they would have used for marketing, for E3, that's not just disappearing. Certainly.
Exactly. Yes.
They're going to do something else or some things else. Absolutely, right? Their lack of presence at E3 will be replaced in some way, right?
Maybe at a different point in the year, but yes, it will go somewhere. Yes.
I don't know exactly what. And to me, that's getting too specific. And like I said, I'm a boring hot take person, so I don't really know. It could be a combination of things, and then, like I said before, that might be something they try for a year, see how it goes, and then continue to make decisions each following year, whatever. So definitely there's something else. Is that something else a separate conference around PS5? Well, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Or is it divided up, Nintendo Direct style things throughout the year? That also makes a lot of sense to me. I might lean on, to be honest, I'll give you one hot take out of this at least. They're going to do a conference and reveal PS5 next year, and it comes out next fall. There's your hot take.
You think it's coming in 2019? Interesting.
I've always thought that there's a good chance of that. I'm not super convicted on it, but I think like I'll stand by it now. And this, to me, that opens a door where I could see that path forming, I guess.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to die on the hill and try to convince you of it, but I could see that being the thing. And this is why, and they're kind of opening that path.
My only counter argument to that, and this is just my personal logical approach. And like you've said many times before, it's something until it's not, or it's a nothing until it is.
Right. Or there's a more articulate phrase.
Yes.
That's famous, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get the gist of it. So it doesn't make sense to me why you would announce a console, not be at E3, and then release it in the fall. Yeah. So it's a
little weird. I see it.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, except for the year. I think that exact thing's going to happen, but if they're going to be at E3, it's going to be 2020. That's just my take on it. Where do you fall on, like, there's a weird thing that people are saying that they're not doing E3 so that way PSX 2019 could be grand. I'm not buying that either. I don't think... I think, like you said, the money is going to go maybe towards a different event or something, but I don't think it's shifting to PSX 2019. I don't think that's what it is.
I think that makes some sense. Probably not a pure trade-off of like, well, E3 is basically now, their E3 is all those resources are put into PSX. I don't think it's going to be a pure trade, but I wouldn't be surprised if, the lack of presence at E3 means, a much grander, I could see that, a much grander PSX next year. It makes sense.
Here's my thinking. I don't think they would reveal the PS5 at a PSX because it happens at the end of the year, and the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
that I'm with you on.
Yeah. So to me, leading to that though, Dom, I don't know why they would have a PSX before the PS5 is announced, if it's so soon. So, like, obviously your thinking is that you have a hot take that PS5 is going to be released next year. So it makes sense to have a PSX after it releases, right? The way I'm coming from it is, obviously, I don't think PS5 is releasing next year. So why would they have a PSX 3 or 4 months before the PS5 is announced? You know what I mean? That's weird to me. That's why I really kind of don't believe PSX 2019 is happening. It's because it's like, well, what's the point of having that a couple of months before you do your blowout event? Because we know we're seeing Last of Us, Death Stranding, and Ghost of Tsushima at that PS5 event, right? Are you with me on that? They're going to be showpieces. Yeah, I guarantee you there'll be a vertical slice of probably God of War Horizon sequel, something. There'll be a vertical slice of one of those games. I guarantee it. Some little animation running on the PS5. I almost guarantee it. It's just weird. I don't see the point. I could see them doing a community PSX, more like low stakes. I don't see them doing a blowout PSX a couple of months before they reveal the PS5. That just doesn't make sense to me. Because what I would think is they would want to do PS5, blow that thing out, E3, show some stuff, obviously get people hyped up, fall, launch the console, that PSX, give announcements for 2021, in my theory, right? And just hype it up that way. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing. Like you said, I don't think everything leads to something else. I don't think the fact they're not doing E3 immediately leads to PSX being huge or PS5 being literally right around the corner. Doesn't mean it isn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, we're reacting to this the day the news is happening. There could be a statement that comes out tomorrow where Sean Layden says, right. "Oh, we're coming back in 2020. Don't worry about it, fans." We're reacting to it as it's happening. There will be an update probably that happens by next Thursday where there's some statement that clarifies something. Who knows? But that's just us reacting off the cuff. I think you did a pretty good job. Dom, you're more level-headed and quote-unquote boring.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily tin hatty, but I like to have like a strong stance on it, just the way I am.
I'll give you one more. Their upcoming lineup for exclusive games, at least, potentially being sparse in the next year or two, or like, you know, are they going to show the same thing they've been showing, like another Last of Us trailer or whatever? I don't think that necessarily played into this too much. We're like, oh, we don't have that much new to show anyway, so we won't do it. I don't think that's the case, because I think they would have no problems with having a primarily third-party or partnership type of show. I mean, Xbox has proven the past like 2 or 3 years that you can have an awesome show without having like killer exclusives and, you know, big exclusive showings, basically.
Agree with you. But
I mean, I don't think that's a huge part of it. It might be some part of it playing into their overall marketing strategy, but yes, I don't know that that's kind of the sole reason.
But I have to give a counter argument to that the last 2 years, Sony isn't about third party. They have all first party stuff and a couple of third party games.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're looking at it from the way they approach E3, and the way they approach E3 is it's a showcase of our games with our biggest third party partners. If you're going to tell me the only games you have to show next year without release dates are the games you showed this year, then I understand from their perspective, well, then it'd be a show of Call of Duty, Destiny expansion, and then other third parties that aren't. It seems like PlayStation's approach isn't that. I agree with you. If their approach was we have a bunch of first parties and a bunch of third parties, then I'd be like, oh yeah, they'd be willing to just do a show where it's a couple of sneak peeks and then strong third party. But that's not how PlayStation has approached it the last like 2 or 3 years. You know what I mean? They see it more as a showcase of themselves. So for me, that's what leads me to believe it's a mix of them feeling like, well, we're known for showcasing amazing games, our amazing games, plus a couple of third parties. We don't have that this year. Let's just blech. We have PS5 coming up. We'll knock it out of the park, no problem. You know what I mean? I think it's a mixture of things. I agree with you. That point is very valid of like, it's not that I don't think they could host a show with third-party support. Duh. Like you said, Xbox has been doing it. It's been really strong.
They're just maybe reluctant to because that's not their thing.
Their approach. They want to
They want to be like, oh, look what we got ourselves. Like,
yeah.
And if they can't bring it, then they ain't gonna show up. Basically.
Exactly. I agree. I think you're right. The way I see their approach. Yeah.
So. Honestly, I mean, now that we talk about it, like I could see that almost just as much. Like I'm too wishy-washy on the fence on this shit because like I can see the points on like all these different takes. I'm like, yeah, that makes some sense.
Exactly.
That also makes some sense. I can see why that doesn't make sense.
There's weight behind all of it. Like, nothing is vehemently like, oh, that's definitely wrong. And that's a tough thing. That's what makes it so interesting.
I guess, if nothing else, they got us talking about it.
Exactly. And I'm very interested to see what Xbox does with that platform. We didn't even really touch on that, and we're running long. But they have an opportunity to just have it to them. Obviously, Nintendo's going to be there too, but Nintendo handles things differently. I'm excited for Xbox, but the tough thing is, I don't think the burden's on Xbox. It could be that they're still doing E3, but what if their plan is to show up at the next year too, for Dom, imagine if we had a camera to see Phil Spencer the moment he heard this news, which he probably already knew about this for a couple of months. I doubt they found out about this today. I guarantee you they probably knew just by handling with ESA and paperwork and information going back and forth. I wonder how they felt about it, because they were a little cheeky on Twitter, which is good. Take advantage of the free PR. But Sony not being at E3 sucks. I feel that way. I love seeing Sony at E3. But it does give everyone else a little bit more spotlight, which is cool for 1 year. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, that has been our show in terms of what we're going to be playing. Red Dead for me, I'm going to try to finish it this week, hopefully. I'm waiting for Spyro, because I want to see if there's maybe even like a 10% discount for Black Friday. I'm willing to pay full price for it, but I'm like, it's like 2 weeks from Black Friday. Might as well just wait. Hopefully I can pick up that for like 10% off or whatever, and get God of War for cheap too. And it's pretty much it for me. Nothing else on the horizon. Zero Dawn I'll handle next year. What about you, Dom?
Just Fallout 76. Going in. You need to send me a screenshot of when you create your character. I want to see that bad boy in the 76 vault on Reclamation Day. I'm hyped, dude.
I have a question. Hyped. When you handle character creators, do you go like, I'm just creating a character, or do you do the I'm creating me?
I don't really have a hard... I don't know. I don't have a hard thing. I'm so boring today, dude. So, for example, every time I load up a game in Skyrim, I'm like, I want to be a Khajiit this time. I want to finally do it, right? I want to be a cat person, or I want to be an Argonian. I want to make my lizard character, and I always, when push comes to shove, I'm like, nah, I'm just going to make a freaking Imperial or a Nord with long brown hair who's, like, kind of similar to me or whatever, and, like, I always, I always end up backing out from my, like, inner creativity trying to burst out.
Yeah.
So I guess, but in Fallout games, I want to make, sometimes I I want to make a guy that, you know what? It's not like me. It's what I feel like making. Sometimes I'm like, I want a gritty wastelander with like a beard.
Gotcha.
And, ratty long hair. Sometimes in New Vegas, the one game I played, I made like a real like slick looking guy. It's like, this dude's going to be hitting the casinos and just wheeling and dealing kind of guy,
Yeah.
So a real slick dude. So I guess I make characters just based on like what I want them to be in the game, and not necessarily reflecting myself more often.
I'm the same way. I do go for those choices in Skyrim of going with Argonian or Orc or whatever, but I am with you where like it's just whatever I feel at the time. If it's a first-person shooter, I always go with the female character model, smaller hitbox. But other than that, just whatever I feel. It's pretty much it for us. If you can, please follow us on iTunes. Leave us a review. It definitely helps. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Leave us a like if you like the podcast. Follow us on Twitter at CTRLINT. That's Controlled Interest abbreviated. I am at Jared_. Dom is at Melomotus. Dom is at Dom's Oreos. Jordan is at Melomotus. Forgive me. Catch us next week when we talk about the latest news when Microsoft decides to pull out E3. Catch you guys next time. Bye.